The one-room schoolhouse dotted the landscape of rural America in the 18th and 19th century. In Galesville, the first one-room school was built in the mid-1870s at the site of the newly restored Rosenwald School on West Benning Road. The beloved Miss Carrie sang Sweden, revered and extolled by our parents and grandparents, taught at this school until a new one-room school was built on Church Lane in 1899. Miss Carrie and her students were transferred then to the new school, and the school on West Benning Road was transferred to the Afro-American community. In 1932, the Church Lane School became a two-room school when a room was added to the rear of the original building with a hallway separating the two rooms. Grades 1 to 4 were housed in the old building and 5, 6, 7 in the new addition. This two-room school is the one we are remembering and celebrating today. We invite you to listen to the remembrances of former students from the 1930s, 40s, and 50s as they recall their school days at the Church Lane School. But before they speak, we should remember what this school was like in the early 1930s. A wood stove sits at the far side of the room, the heat barely reaching the opposite side. Outside lavatories are down by the creek, a far walk for first graders. A chalkboard covers one side of the room with written work for each class. Rows of desks are bolted to the floor, and the floor is oiled to control the dust. There is a cloakroom where coats hang on hooks, paper bags and lunch boxes line the shelf, and on one end of the shelf is a bucket of water with a communal dipper. With this setting in mind, we will listen to former students share their memories of the two-room school on Church Lane.
Actually went there beginning in 1930. I was only 5 at the time. There were supposed to be 6 before you went to school, at least by January. Well, another kid in the neighborhood wouldn't be 6 until the following year, the two of us. Somehow the PTA made a deal with the Board of Education to allow the two of us to go to school in order to keep the school operating. They had to have a minimum number of students, and they were too shy. So they allowed Josephine Benning and me to take up space, because really that's all we did. We drew pictures, and I'm sure the teacher paid attention to us and coddled us to a degree. I can remember in the afternoon getting sleepy, putting my head on the desk and taking a nap. And school went on just as it was supposed to. She had the primary grades. And her name was Ann Kaiser. I'll never forget that. Every doll I ever had was named Ann because I thought she was just marvelous. There were 7 grades in the elementary school. The primary room were the first 4 grades, and then the other grades, 5th, 6th, and 7th, were taught by the principal in the school, Mrs. Basford. And the teacher had her schedule all lined up. She was quite good at it. When you go in the morning, the blackboard was full of stuff for you to do while she was teaching another class. She'd begin here with this class, give them an assignment, go on down.
When you came in and you looked at the blackboard, you saw what you were supposed to be doing.
Yeah, or she would tell you, now this is for 7th grade, this is for 6th grade. I want you to work on that while I'm with such and such a class.
I see.
There was never any problem, everybody just did it. We had a routine when we went in. First thing was the Pledge of Allegiance. Oh, I remember this. And she had the 23rd song. I remember the 23rd song from the day I stepped in her room and learned it. you see all of those things and looking back, we were taught so many things that weren't taught in a book. She made us write a note to him while he was in the hospital, and she kept us abreast of how Jack was doing and what we could do. Other things you just don't think about that people just automatically do. But she really laid a good foundation for every child she ever taught. And that's what I remember about school.
And as Jean said, we lived across the road from the school. And when the time came, well, I guess I was only 5, and I decided I wanted to go to school. Now, I don't know what the system was like, really, but if you decided you wanted to go to school, you went. I mean, I don't know how they did that in registering, but I said, all right, if you want to go to school, go ahead. So I went to school and came home for lunch because it was right across the road. And Mom said, well, are you ready to go back? I said, I'm not going back. And she said, why? And I said, because Letterhouse yelled at me, and I'm not going back. She said, well, that's okay. You don't have to go back. So I didn't go until I was 6. But I wanted to go when I was 5 because the little girl up the road was going, and I was crazy about being with her. So, but she went on, and I stayed back because I didn't want Letterhouse to yell at me anymore. On Friday after lunch, she always read a story. We always looked forward to this book that she had, and she'd read us this long story, and then we just went home after that. It was always a good story she read for us. But then when I got to the 6th grade, I was at the 6th grade, and our father was building houses in Baltimore for the Colonel Martin workers out there for the war project. So I left the school and went to school in Essex. Now, for most of the time in Galesville, there was never more than 5 students in our class. Most of the time, it was only 2 or 3. Shirley, Woodfield, Day, excuse me, and me were the constant 2. And so when I went to Baltimore and went to school, there were 3 classrooms of 7th graders. I was completely lost. I mean, overwhelmed, all these children there. But somehow made it through there.
We sang here every morning. That was part of the opening exercises.
Right.
Because in the wintertime, it was so cold in the room. The first boy on board in the morning would stoke up the wood stove or the coal stove, and
Oh, I think
all
it was
that was heating
huge.
up the classroom. We would sing or stand up and do this, something to get warm, and then sit down. Yeah, that's how we, my teacher was Mrs. Bassford, I didn't say that.
Yeah. Outside of Mrs. Bassford's room, we had a softball diamond, I guess you call it. Speak of diamonds in the rough. and we didn't have enough boys to have a boys team or girls to have a girls team, so it was all mixed up. And we kind of made up our own rules. If you hit 4 foul balls, that was out. You're only allowed 4. I'm pretty sure that was right. And if you hit the ball over the fence, that was out. Because the game had to stop because you had to go and find the ball. We only had 1 ball. So we had just all kinds of our own rules. Who was to dispute it, And then they would have, I think it was called Play Day, where we went to the other school.
Field day.
Field Day, something like that. And I would get so excited about going. Couldn't eat. I'd get just all wound up going. And we'd go down to Deal. And they had big children.
Yeah, everybody giants.
And they would play dodgeball and they'd beat the heck out of us because they could throw that ball so hard. But I I used to be scared to death of them, but that was a highlight of the year, is to have field day.
Yeah, you competed against other schools.
But we survived all that. When we were children, we were children. We didn't have chores to do. We didn't get an allowance. We didn't earn it.
Parents didn't have any money.
Our job was just to be children.
Allowance.
And I don't think it hurt any of us. I think we're all responsible adults and don't have to, I didn't have to pick up my clothes or whatever. I didn't throw them on the floor to begin with. Things were just basic things that you're taught.
What about,
Children were children.
any kind of jobs or responsibilities did you have around the school?
Oh, I did. I forgot. No, it's in the book, and I forgot it.
I know it's in the book, that's why I brought it up.
Yes. And then back to my friend Josephine Berry, she and I were the only two girls in our class. The rest of them were boys. We washed blackboards every day. And we got this stupendous amount of money, 50 cents a month for doing that. And we really thought we were rich. I'm not lying. We go out and did a bucket of water. Where did we get the water? Oh, pump inside. Yeah. Yeah, that's another thing. There was one bucket of water with a dipper or a
Sponge.
no, sitting in the hallway.
Oh.
If you wanted to drink the water, every kid drank out of that bucket. They never thought anything of it. And of course, we had the outside bathrooms, and every Halloween, the big boys would push the
Turn 'em
toilets
over.
over. Huh?
Oh, I would what?
Yeah,
over.
that was the only thing they could think about doing, is pushing the toilets over to school, or taking the gate off of Francis Cobb's, whatever it was, he had the gate on down here now, because they thought he was a mummy. You know, he was so stern. So that was their, oh, I'm getting off track now. Let's get back to the school. It's true, yeah, we kept it clean.
Swept the floors.
Yeah,
Didn't do anything.
yeah, Josie and I did that. And, well, we didn't like beating at the races too much. If some of the boys hadn't gone home yet, we'd ask them if they would, and they'd go out and beat them on the tree and get the chalk dust out and give them back to us. I remember getting back to Mrs. Bassford. Every Friday, after lunch, and everybody was home for lunch, we had to come back and tell them and tell her some current event that had taken place in the whole world, in the country, or here, that had to be shared with the 4 grades. So all the kids went home for lunch, and usually the radio was on, so they would hear something, and that's what she would tell them to do. You learn, listen to the radio. So Jack Smith was always a star of that. He always had the best ones to tell. I remember him talking about Haile Selassie over in Japan. Yeah, that was the Romans, the beginnings. Once we were kids, we didn't know it. I thought, where is Haile Selassie? You know, but he just rambled on and on about it. I thought it was really fascinating. And some of them would get up and say, well, I went to Annapolis this week, or that was a current event as far as they were concerned.
But this hallway that Jean was talking about, it obviously had been upgraded when I got to school, because we had one fountain, we didn't have a bucket of water anymore, and one sink where you could wash your hands. And I remember one time somebody had brought some makeup to school, and the girls went down in the girls' toilet, and they'd put all this makeup on, and the rouge and everything. I didn't put any on, but I had laughed so much that my face was redder than the rest of them. And Mrs. Bassford had these old brown paper towels.
Yeah.
Might as well have been cardboard or sandpaper. And she started scrubbing with that old brown soap and those brown paper towels. And Spade took all the skin right off my face. Mama was so mad she was ready to have a fit because she had just been scrubbed my face raw. And I didn't even have any on.
I had a habit of biting my fingernails, and she didn't like that. And she let it be known to everybody. So she put a big X across my desk. Every day she renewed that big X until I stopped biting my fingernails, which I did, because I didn't like the X. My memories, good memories, are of recess. Not that I didn't like studying, because I did, but for recess we could do dodgeball, which has been outlawed now in some places. We could do running around the village. I remember coming back from lunch at home. Everybody walked home to lunch. And you stopped at Captain Harvey's on your way back to get a fudge sickle if you had a nickel. And you were lucky when you had a nickel. Not that I remember being deprived at all. If you didn't have a nickel, you could get penny candy. The dodgeball was my big pleasure at recess. Meredith and I were very good friends from first grade up, or before first grade and up. So much so that when we left elementary and we had bicycles, we were fortunate because we had bicycles, and we would ride down to the school on weekends, and we would find a window that was open, hadn't been locked. And you can't believe this of me or Ruth, but we would crawl in the window and dance on the desk, sing and dance on the desk. I don't think we ever looked at the grade book, because I don't think we were even aware of that kind of thing. But what an opportunity that would have been had we thought of it.
Never got caught?
No, it kind of wasn't a matter of getting caught. I don't think people would care at that time, because they knew we were good girls. And we wouldn't do anything like that anyway. I know they could never have believed it of me or Ruth anyway. Maybe me.
There's a shed behind the school, and they'd play Annie over that shed. You had teams,
Yeah,
one on one side of the shed and one team on the other, and you'd throw the ball over, and they would catch it and try to come around and hit you with the ball, and you tried to keep away from them.
And if they hit you, what happened?
You were out. Betty mentioned recess. We had 2 recesses per day, one at 10:30 in the morning and one at 2:30 in the afternoon, and they were great. We could do most whatever we wanted during those recesses. I mean, I remember playing fox and hounds all over the village and
Really?
coming back when we heard the bell. Somebody would ring the big old bell and we'd come back. And the same thing when the creek was frozen. We would skate out there at recess and at lunchtime when we had time. And we'd stay out there until we heard the bell calling us back. We'd go back in school.
What is foxes and hounds?
That's the same idea as having teams. Some were foxes and some were hounds. And if the hounds caught the foxes, they were out. So I guess if you caught all the foxes, you won.
And you ran all over town.
Yeah. Yeah, of course we had an hour for lunch. And Betty said we walked home for lunch. with the later generation who went there, they still had the outhouses, no plumbing inside. So my sister Brenda hated those outhouses. She refused to use them. She would not go there at all. And by the time she got home in the afternoon, she'd have to go so badly that she would be hanging on the mailbox. So,
I remember when Johnny Hines, Sue's husband, turned out to be Sue's husband, came to our school. Of course, we didn't get many people transferred. And it was exciting to see him and hear what he had to say. And I remember that he told his mother when he went home that day, "Mama, nobody even wanted to fight here." He had come from a fighting school, I guess. But that kind of was the way Galesville School was. Everybody was happy and friendly. The way Galesville is now.
Right, that's right.
So I'm from the perspective, we've been getting the perspective of the students. I'm interested in this perspective from a teacher who is teaching in a class like that.
Well, it was very pleasant because every parent was involved. But anyway, then the teacher had to be on her toes. You couldn't get away with anything. Not that you maybe wanted to. And for example, PTA night, every child was represented, which of course has changed over the years. And you knew each child, you knew each parent, which was wonderful for a teacher.
oh, I know we had to beat the erasers. There were erasers you used to erase the chalkboards, and they'd get full of dust. So you had to take them outside and beat them together so that these clouds of dust probably was terrible for your health. But anyway, you did it and then you washed the blackboards.
I don't remember that they ever called school.
Because we could all walk to school, and Mrs. Bassford, one of the teachers, had to drive here, but I think she managed to get here no matter what.
I remember one time though, she came on horse.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that.
Right. So nothing was going to deter her.
But you were used to using an outhouse at the school.
Oh no, I went there one time as far as I can remember, and I saw this spider, a huge spider, and I don't think I ever went back. I don't remember ever going back.
One of the differences was that there were community schools. Like, now the schools are so big and they draw from several different communities, and that makes a big difference because the parents are not as involved. The students don't care as much because they know the parents are not involved.
Miss Marjorie was my teacher also. She was a close friend of my mother's. She was a good teacher. Each row was a grade. 1 row, 2 row, 3. And Marilyn Archie, whose mother had homeschooled her. Marilyn's a little younger than I am. She was born in May '43. But when she got to school, Miss Marjorie found out that she knew all her numbers, she could read, she understood all the basics that are taught in 1st grade. Miss Marjorie just pointed to an empty seat in 2nd grade, and that's how Marilyn got promoted. Yeah.
I remember her dogs. She brought her dogs to school.
Everybody brought their dogs
And,
to school.
but she brought her dog and used it as a lesson for us. It was Sam. Do you remember Black
I remember
Sam?
Black Sam like yesterday.
He was a black lab. And this is the best way to start a 1st grade, believe me. when your teacher brings her dog to school, and she would hide the eraser. And of course the dog was trained in some way, I don't know. He trained him probably Mr. Riggs, her second
In the
husband.
meantime, Miss Marjorie had changed husbands.
So, this, I don't think she changed husbands at that point. I think she brought the black lab that came from Mr. Riggs to school, and she would hide the eraser, and then we would be in awe of the dog having found the eraser wherever she hid it.
Coal stoves, coal-fired stoves, big ones, made for a school or a store or something with a lot of space. And they had a shield around them so you couldn't actually bump into it. They had a janitor who came down. He would bank them at night and then shake them up in the morning. He'd get there long before the teacher. Well, man, Jiffy was now, who lived up the road here. And then I think some of the boys in the school, like Dottie said, knew how to shake a coal, get a coal scoop, and at noon or what have you, give another layer of fresh coal to it. And then Captain Jiffy, I think, banked them in the evening, let them cool down, and then shook them up and fired them up in the morning. I don't remember school being cold.
No, I don't either.
The other room had the desks unscrewed from the floor. These desks screwed down to the floor. And they had an inkwell, believe it or not, and they had a slot for the pen, and it was the front fold of the seat was the seat for the next student above you. All those in the west room, closest to Church Lane, had been unscrewed from the floor and stacked up along the walls. On rainy days, we roller skated in that room. The kids had to clamp on roller skates. And that was what we did as far as a recess or lunchtime in that. And the teaching kind of blended. I'm sure, you know, you were in first grade, you absorbed some of what second grade was. But I'll tell you what, it was a system that worked. I didn't leave there feeling I was handicapped in any way at all in education. And,
Ooh. Well, I can remember one time, I think I must have been dared to do this. I can't imagine I did it on my own. But there was a desk in the front of the room, and there was a clock above the desk. And I was,
you did not.
I did. I got up and I set the clock up somehow to about 10 or 15 minutes faster so that we could get out of school. It was very late in the day. And I got caught. And this was in the 3rd grade. And this is my Aunt Elizabeth. And she was furious with me. So I had to go home and write 100 times, which I will never forget. I must not touch school property. I don't think my mother was too happy with me. But then I was such a smart aleck. I really wasn't very. I was a bit of a mischievous person.
Sounds like it.
It's an understatement.
So when I was to go back the next day, a couple of girls crossed their hands and carried me in because I couldn't touch school property. That wasn't too well received either.
I can testify to Miss Marjorie's temper. My father, I have no idea where he found it. I've only seen one in my life. Bought me a water pistol that had a hand crank, and it shot drops. It has a reservoir, aluminum reservoir. The rest of the frame was hard plastic, and it was incredibly accurate. For me to hit my brother in his shirt pocket over there where he's standing now would have been no problem. I had to take to school. And oh my God, I can see Miss Marjorie seizing that thing now.
Oh.
Her face was just as red as fire. She walked back to that coal stove, opened that door, and in went the water pistol, closed the door, end of that.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, God.
She would take the whole school. And if
The
we had,
whole school.
I can remember going to a fire on Benning Lane. She took the, it was terrible. The whole school went to West Benning Lane at this fire, and it was like a whole house. I don't know why she took us there, but she did. It was like a traumatic experience because the whole house burnt down while we were standing there.
I don't remember that.
Oh,
I might have
yeah.
gone on to Owensville.
Oh, yeah. And then she would take us ice skating. See what we loved her?
It was pretty informal compared to what you see today.
Well, and I think that's why these stories are so good, because I suspect it was also pretty informal compared to what was going on in in some of the largest schools even around here.
Oh, yeah, oh, absolutely, yeah.
And if you're basically the only teacher in school, there's nobody there to say, to tell on you or anything like that.
But the other thing that she would do, which was really very progressive in a way, she would take us to the different businesses in the village, and we would learn what was happening there. And we'd go to the post office and the firehouse and Woodfields and Harchies and
She was,
Western Marina.
absolutely, she was, you know, she was, I guess, far ahead of her time when it comes to what kids should learn.
Let's see, I think going to Woodfields, when we saw the fish and the people and I can remember like a boat with tons of fish. I mean, my father was a fisherman, and I would go to the pier down here where Wells lives now all the time, and they would come back with coolers full of rockfish. But there it was a whole boat full. I guess they were rock, I don't know what they were. But to see that was different to me.
When I went there on the snow days, we'd leave the house and say, one was Mrs. Bassford, she lived in Birdsville or Jamesonville, I think it was Birdsville. We'd say, one of Mrs. Bassford will show up today. And you'd go down there and there was that old Buick. She broke the trail, she broke the road, trail down to the road before the snowplows did. And she was there every day, I don't care if it was snow day or what day it was.
Recess was, as I recall, I mean, we didn't really have too much out there besides swings and, you know, some minimal equipment. We just ran around and we played and we jumped rope and just chased each other around.
You had 2 swings and 2 seesaws and one.
Seesaws, yeah.
They called it a jungle gym or monkey bars or whatever they called them at that time. That's what was the equipment.
And most of the time, the boys are on the backfield playing baseball.
Playing softball, yep, yeah. Dodgeball and tag.
Dodgeball, tag,
Yeah.
you know,
Throwing rocks
running
at
around,
each
just
other.
like you say,
Yeah, we
running
just
around.
ran around. We just ran off
You
that
know,
energy.
I think that's why they turned us out there, you know, to get out the door and burn something off and then come back in.
How do you know when it was time to go back in?
They
Teacher would
ran-
come
They
out and
rang
bring the
about.
bell.
They ran hand in
Ran
hand.
hand.
And-
You know, you
Well, we
brought,
got-
you brought your little brown bag or.
And the milkman used to come every day and put the milk out on the step.
Yeah.
And it was in pint jars with the little cardboard thing in the top of that. And no refrigeration, so. And I would walk to school when I didn't ride my stick horse.
Yeah.
You never with the stick horse.
I got
Oh, we all had stick horses.
Yeah, we all had stick horses. yeah.
Cynthia's father made them for us.
No, they were
She made the head.
No, Cynthia's
He made
father.
the head.
Excuse
He
me,
made the head.
she made them for.
A lot of
She made them
them.
for us.
Sit down here,
for,
I did.
Actually, they had it to the 3rd grade, and then all the mothers decided they needed to go one more grade because they didn't want to see us get on the school bus.
That's right.
My mother hated that school bus.
That's right.
And so they went to the 4th
They
grade.
didn't want to ship us out.
Right.
Kenny and Meredith Ziegler and Jimmy Harchie, they were the last 3rd grade class. Everybody was lined up per their grade, and each group was taught individually, had individual reading classes where you went to the front and read as a group, and everything else was just taught individually to each grade.
So sometimes each group would be on their own with some of them.
Right,
Sometimes
right,
to get instructions and.
right.
Right.
But you were only a yardstick a length away, you know.
That's for sure. or grab you by the ear.
Everybody here or something like that.
I want to go back to this business with these stick horses.
Everybody had
Did everybody had stick horses?
And
Have you seen the commercial on TV they run now called The Settlers? We settle for this. Well, we didn't have much. So, you know, tobacco stick with a horse head screwed on it
Right.
and a piece of line that was a rein. You were a
And-
cowboy.
And we were happy.
We were happy.
Cynthia's father, Robert, he was a master carpenter. And do you remember the heads that he made? Because you had the first one I saw, and then every day after that, I'd come down after after his work. And I think back now how I worried the poor man, because I had no conception of him working. I wanted the horse in, every day.
What was he doing all day?
Yeah, why
Can't you
can't
make
you
me
make
one?
it?
What's going on?
Well, he made me one.
I feel left out because I didn't get one.
You didn't get one?
And I had a lovely stick. I had no hand.
We had a little hitcher post for him and everything.
Really? That's cool.
Yeah,
We hitched him on.
the thing beside the swings.
Oh, yeah.
Were there any other differences about going to Owensville as compared to Galesville?
Well, we were only there for 2 years.
They had a cafeteria.
They
Yeah.
had a cafeteria,
We had a crossing guard.
a kitchen.
And ice cream,
They, it was,
cold milk.
was like a real school,
Bigger playground.
Lunchtime came, you got down, and got in line,
Yeah.
and went through and got your tray and sat in the cafeteria and, had lunch. They had,
He'd bring it back to your room.
you could, that's right, yeah, you're
And
right.
when they were in there.
But now you just had one teacher for the grades. They weren't
Yes,
So you-
Yes.
Yeah.
yes.
So we split up.
Yeah, we all got split up.
This Fairfield?
Yep. Yeah,
I think
you're
that's
right.
right.
Yeah.
That was the introduction to instruments also, wasn't it? We didn't have
We didn't have anything like
Anything to
that
that here.
in Galesville.
and when you got to
That's
Owensville,
true.
you could take music lessons. And, there was something like Warren his brother played saxophone, so he fooled around with the saxophone his whole life. But then when he got up there, it was lessons, real,
Right. Yeah,
where you learn to
learn
read and write music
and that kind of thing.
and really play an instrument. And we did May Day where we had.
Oh, yeah, we danced around the maypole.
Had a maypole out in the back,
I always liked that.
on in the middle of the baseball
I did
field.
too. I was thinking about that the other day. It really stupid.
Now,
May
did
1st.
everybody do the maypole, or
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody participated.
did you all look forward to that? Or?
Oh, yeah.
Well, we had a May Day.
It was a,
Yeah, it was
and
a
parents were there, they had things to eat
Yeah,
and
Celebration.
Yeah.
celebration,
Play games.
Games, play games.
games,
Mm-hmm.
What kind of games did you play different from recess?
probably not,
No.
Maybe just a
Like
little more
football,
organized.
softball.
Yeah.
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 Tag,
Didn't we have some percussion
We had,
things like your
Little
they had
bells on a
they had sticks.
sticks and
bells,
bells?
and,
Triangle.
and the ultimate was the triangle.
Triangle. There you go.
Triangle.
I
You
always
know.
thought that was kind of special though, is that it was a small group.
Yes,
You knew everybody, everybody knew you.
yes.
Nobody was, just don't remember people being excluded from the
No,
group.
there weren't
No.
cliques.
Anything like that, and
Didn't
if,
happen.
my mother wasn't gonna be home, I could go to her house
Yeah.
or her house,
Yeah, well, that
or,
was it,
Yeah.
yeah,
or
that's
their
how
house
the town,
and,
that's how the town used to be.
yeah.
There wasn't, I bet you there was a time when we, about elementary school time where you knew who lived in every house in
Right.
town.
We've been
And
in
they
probably
knew who
every
you
house,
were.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Michael Hardesty and I, for some reason, Mrs. Nye was our teacher in at the end of the 4th grade. We felt like we weren't going to see her anymore, so we decided that we needed to give her a present. So we decided we were going to have a carnival. And so we had a carnival in my yard with these games, and my mother made cake and cookies, and we charged for it. And I can't remember what, but I have the letter here that she sent me for a thank you from 1956.
Isn't that something?
And you can read it because she taught you how to.
She did, yeah. Well, she used to read us Uncle
day.
Remus
Uncle
every
Remus.
day.
Oh, yeah, I
Yes,
remember that.
every day,
Every day.
Think
Every
from-
Every
day.
day.
And she could read it like nobody.
yes.
But here's the letter if anybody cares to read it.
Why don't you read it aloud?
Read it aloud.
Yeah, you can read
All right.
it.
Dear Chuck, this is June 20th, 1956. Dear Chuck, I want to tell you again that I appreciate more than I can say the thoughtful gift from you and Michael and all who took part in giving the carnival. I am going to get something with it that I can keep. I'm looking forward with much pleasure to the time when you boys come to visit us. In the meantime, have a happy summer. Thank you again for that wonderful gift. Love to you all. Your friend, Lillian Nye.
I wrote to her
Yeah, that's really
all the
nice.
way through high school.
Did
Did
you
you?
really?
Yeah. I mean, she lived What, 5 miles from where I am? Yeah.
Too special.
My-
Every day there was.
Say the Lord's Prayer and the Pledge Allegiance to
And
the
pledge
flag.
allegiance.
every day.
And we sang, Now the Day is Over.
Yep, that's true, I forgot that, you're right, yeah.
Well, remember the
Oh,
inkwells?
yeah.
Well, the boys used to pull my hair. They would sit behind me, I had these long braids, and they would pull my hair and tie them into the inkwell.
I just remember if you go in the door, there was a hallway.
Yeah.
The first and second
Was first and
were on the
second.
right, and the third and fourth grade was on the left.
Right.
I think there might have been a water fountain in the hallway,
Yeah.
a phone.
Yeah.
I don't know if a door went out the back or not.
It
There was
did.
a
Yeah, there was a door out the back, and at each end there was a bathroom. There was the girls
Yeah.
and boys. Now, when my brother went there 8 years before, there was a path out the back and 2 outhouses. So we had moved up by the time. Yeah. We had moved up in the world time I got there.
There was a cloak
Had
room,
running water
wasn't
in
it?
the cloakroom.
On
Yeah.
the church lane side. I think,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Galesville two-room schoolhouse at Maple.
Maple
And
Day.
everybody that I talked to, that has been one of their, maybe not fondest, but it was certainly a memory.
It was a May Day thing.
Right,
Right, that's
and we
right.
all had those,
Went around the pole.
Went around the
we
pole
used
and
to
wove
those
the
ribbons.
stuff
Ribbons,
together, ribbons
ribbons,
together.
And we got
yeah.
to pick out skirts.
right, we had colorful,
And
the
a
girls
cardboard
had
box.
skirts that matched the ribbons, didn't it? Didn't the
Yes,
skirts
yes,
match the ribbons? And then you did that weaving around the pole.
That's, you know, don't forget the maypole dance.
I want to go back to the maypole a minute and just ask you two guys, what do you think about the maypole and May Day?
Well, that was what the girls did. I don't even remember what we did. I
don't
remember
either.
watching them do that.
Yeah, that pole was on the creek side of
Yep.
the,
Yeah.
yeah. And I don't actually remember. I know that the ribbon you went around.
It ended up
but I
woven all the way
I
down the
don't
length of the
remember
pole.
participating in it.
No, I didn't.
If I remember correctly, you guys played softball.
That's
There
what
was a
everybody
That's what I
softball
remember
game with boys.
always doing
After our thing.
during recess or lunch or anything else, any outside activity. We either played on it. They had a couple seesaws, a
Sure,
little
yeah,
set of
seesaw.
monkey bars, and some swings. Nice
Yeah.
swings with
They were nice swings.
with chain on them and all. And then we played softball
And kickball.
and kickball. Yeah.
Played kickball.
Dodgeball.
And sand and
Dodgeball.
crabgrass.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah. There was all
crabgrass
that.
and sand, you know, it wasn't much of a playground.
Yeah, yeah, there was a lot of sand there. I guess they figured it was better to land on sand than pack dirt. So.
So you all went home, you all had your lunch there
Sometimes,
sometimes?
we could go home for lunch.
A lot of them could go home for
We
lunch.
did.
I carried my lunch because I came from a farm a couple
Yeah, I
miles
think
up the
mostly I
road.
remember staying home though. I mean,
Staying-
no, staying at school.
Yeah, I remember bringing a bag lunch most of the
Yeah.
time, but I know that we did.
And
we
they
could
did,
walk
and
home.
they delivered milk,
Yeah, little
In the-
cartons of them.
yeah, and at first,
Chocolate, no.
chocolate
Yeah.
or white.
Well, what?
Yeah, you could get chocolate milk. That was a big deal.
Yeah.
Right, it did cost a penny more though.
It did, I think
Yeah, it cost
it
a
did.
penny more.
And originally, I think maybe when we were in first grade, it was still coming in little bottles.
Little bottles, yeah.
And then like maybe second or third grade, we
Went to
transitioned
cartons.
over to
Oh,
cartons.
I
Yeah.
All I
remember the
remember were the
cartons.
cartons.
I don't remember the
the
cartons.
bottles.
Were they 4 cents?
We're older. I think,
Four
no, I
2
think
cents,
2
3
cents for
cents?
white and 3 for chocolate.
Did you have a refrigerator by that time?
I
No,
don't think so.
it came
They'd
in
be
a
like
little
black ice.
milk box.
With a block of ice under it, right?
Yeah, Johnny
Oh,
has a
really?
story about chopping up the ice. He was 8 years old or 9 years old with an ice pick.
I do have a story that has always stuck out in my mind. It was a tradition at the little schoolhouse to, I guess it was Miss Katsky's tradition, that she spanked you on your birthday. Do you remember that? She brought you up front?
I got
and gave-
spanked, but it wasn't my birthday.
It was my very first day. I was 6 years old that day. It was September 8th, and she spanked me. It was embarrassing. you know,
Wow.
But, I mean, it was tradition there. Everybody got 6 and then a pinch and whatever.
What I remember is reading was not my forte, and I remember being moved from the smart group to the dumb group. I forget what they called it, the bluebirds to the redbirds, or whatever the heck
You
it
just
was.
changed deaths.
But I was, it wasn't any gal
You went
in
down to the
anybody's
buzzards.
mind that I wasn't reading too well.
But I remember one time, they had like a parents' day, and this really sticks out in my mind.
And all the parents came in and they had actually set it up to be funny and had kids doing things that they weren't supposed to do and all kinds of stuff just to kind of show what went on during the day. And my part was I always got in trouble for leaning back in my chair. So, I was supposed to fall over backwards, chair and all. And I did it so well that the parents thought I'd really accidentally fallen, and everybody was all worried, and they jumped up. And the teacher's going, no, Mark's really good at this.
I know my mother would tell Jay and Cassie, if they do anything wrong, you smack them, you got my permission.
And did they?
Oh yeah, I remember her washing my mouth out with soap one time, and that,
Oh my God.
I did. I think my older brother had taught me a new word, and I shared it with everybody.
Those are probably some of the other memories we have of walking up the street and going into
Captain Harvey.
Captain Harvey's by Penny Candy.
Penny Candy, yeah.
Oh, I remember walking up the only sidewalk in Galesville at the time, going up Church Lane.
Right.
We could walk up to Captain Harvey's and buy Penny Candy.
And the crossing guard, you probably were one, because I know Johnny.
No, Johnny was. I was always jealous. I never got the safety
Never
patrol.
done that,
You had a little belt with a badge on it.
And where were they crossing? You at Main Street?
And it's right at the corner from
Main Street.
Right there at the
Yeah.
corner.
And Main Street.
Well, that was all there was to.
Yeah, Johnny crosses there.
And was there any cars or?
Oh, there was a car
I think I
down
see something coming.
there. Yeah.
Blow the whistle.
Where were the teachers during recess? Where were the teachers?
I don't remember them being outside.
I don't remember being outside either.
Went down
Like I said, the customers flew around pretty liberally, so.
But
They
then,
were taking a break.
then they would come out
Get
with a
out, yeah,
bell.
go out and
Yeah, they
play.
had a bell.
They had a bell and she'd ring the bell.
Hand
We'd
bell,
line
yeah.
up. We'd line
Yeah,
up.
we lined up to
Wasn't no
come back
electric
in. That's really
bell.
funny. I forgot that. We
Yeah,
were
everybody
lined
had
up.
a line up, they make sure you were all there. Everybody came back from lunch or recess or whatever.
But I remember my mom was the secretary there.
Right.
And she just, like we said, everybody going off their clothes at Cobb's store. And so everybody had the same either red boots or round rubber boots.
We had the same
Yeah,
boots.
yeah.
And she used to hate it because if it was raining, every kid in the school put their boots in the cloakroom. And then at the end of the day,
They didn't know whose boots were
all
in.
mixed up and they'd be like, Rosemary, I can't wear my boots. She,
So you had just basic subjects. There was no art, no music, no.
We
Well,
had
there was some,
music.
there was music, we used to sing, and like I said, they had the little triangles and the little sticks, and I forget, a little bell or something, I forget what it was.
And those little flute things.
yeah, recorders.
Is the first year of integration go at Prairie Region?
I think it was a shock to begin with, I think.
But
It ended up,
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think you need to think of it in years. I would venture to guess that within weeks, we had overcome the newness of it.
Yeah.
Because
kids.
We had,
kids are adapted, we didn't really care. Because I do remember becoming friends with both Joyces,
right.
and that lasted, yeah, to this day.
But
I mean,